actually, let's lay down the ground rules here for this draft that we're about to do, which is basically the concept of this draft is essentially who will make the largest leap in the NBA this season. Now, I don't want to disqualify people from this draft that have already made leaps. For example, if you made a leap to All-Star, like a year ago, a good example of this is like a year ago, if we had said Jalen Brunson for this, he would still qualify because he went from fringe, borderline all-star talent to second team All-NBA, fringe MVP candidate last year.
Yeah.
So he would be a guy that would qualify for a breakout still, even though we already technically kind of broke out. So guys that are currently stars, if we think they can become superstars, should still be eligible for the breakout draft. And basically this whole thing is I have 5 different definitions of what I'm going to draft based upon. And that first one is the breakout from star to superstar. So I have one star who will likely become a superstar this upcoming season, one up-and-coming young player who will make the star leap, one role player who will become a very good player in a new role or context, one young player who will become a high-impact player or clear future star, and then one fringe NBA player who will become a rotation player. So I sent Sam a list of names for this. Just some guys that I think would have qualified for this exercise last year if we did it would have been Jalen Brunson and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander making the leap to MVP candidate. Even all-star guys like Jaylen Brown and Karl-Anthony Towns kind of beating some of the allegations that they had about their game, especially in the playoffs. Tyrese Maxey as a new all-star last year. Tyrese Halliburton as a new all-NBA player. And then just some general role players. I'll throw some names out here. Guys who really took their stock from a lower level to a higher level last year by either joining new teams or just being hyper impactful on the teams that they were on. Some guys, Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, Daniel Gafford, Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Suggs, Jalen Williams, PJ Washington, Zubac, Aaron Nesmith, Keon Ellis. So you get the idea essentially there. Guys who went from, good, like solid rotation players to like clear starter level guys that have a high impact on winning at the higher levels for their teams. And I will allow you to take the first pick with the breakout player draft, because this is the first part of 2 drafts that we're going to be doing. We're going to do this episode, which is the breakout player draft. And then the second episode we're going to do is basically the stock down the fall off draft, essentially, like guys who are about to really kind of tank their perception around the league based on injuries or just becoming washed or something else that might change their perception a year from now. So why don't you start with the first pick in the breakout player draft right now?
Okay. So I'm just going to take this guy just because he's the one that I believe in the most, kind of meaningfully changing. Let's go to the Washington Wizards. And let's talk about my guy, Bilal Coulibaly.
Oh, I had him on my list.
One of the first things I did, like part of my process for this was like looking around to see like who has like a scenario set up for them to get the volume that would be necessary for some sort of leap, like a change in talent that might necessarily facilitate that kind of a leap. And, where I think that they are on, either on the younger yet and or have not been in the league long enough developmentally where there's still something there. And Bilal checks all the boxes. He's, was decent-ish last year, like didn't look like totally overwhelmed by what was going on, because I think it was his rookie year last year, right?
He was a rookie.
Yeah. So second year guy, usually guys need a little bit more time than this, but I think Washington still has, like, they moved out some of their guys who fit less. And they do have like some more players. Like I know Malcolm Brogdon's hurt right now, but like he is a real NBA like veteran player. I think Bub Carrington is gonna like struggle at times. But Corey Kispert, Kyle Kuzma, there's we talked about how the Wizards like have like they have like normal NBA talent despite like being bad. And I think Jordan Poole will probably be more normal this year. I
think he was after that like horrendous start the season. Like, I'm not saying Jordan Poole's going to be good by any stretch of the imagination. He won't impact winning. He'll still kind of put up some empty numbers, but he was like a disaster the first 3 months last year. And then he was like just fine for the rest of the season.
Yeah, then he was like more normal. You know what I'm saying? Like I think he can be more just like a diet Tyler Hero. Like in that like it's diet dog shit, I guess. But like still okay. But I think that Bilal can really move himself up here and like make a lot of changes. I think developmentally, this is when guys start catching up to the pace of the game. And I think he's athletic enough. I think he's got enough of a skill set in a bunch of different ways to, I'm not saying that he's going to be like, guaranteed all-star or anything like that, but I think that he could make a leap into being like one of these like prime young players who's like kind of on the short list. And like, maybe we get to the all-star break and we're like, hey, and if Zach's still at a podcast, he would be like, and look, I just want to mention Bilal Coulibaly. I mean, the Wizards. We're talking about the Wizards. So it's not.
They haven't had a lot to be optimistic about, Bobby Marks.
Right. Like I don't think the efficiency is going to be there. I think it's still going to be a rough situation. He's going to turn the ball over a lot. Maybe the shooting percentages aren't great, but I think he is going to have like some raw numbers there. Like I think it's possible he becomes like a 20-point per game scorer. Like he does some of these other things, especially once they like move on from Kuzma, which will.
I think that happens.
Yeah,
I think that Kuzma's gone by the deadline.
Yeah,
because I think that we are going to look around the league, and it's going to be hard to make trades for guys that have Kuzma's skill set. Even if I think Kuzma is personally overrated and is a bit of an empty numbers guy, I think to get a 6'9" guy who can handle the ball, that can rebound, that can kind of shoot, can kind of create, I think that his skill set will be in demand. And as I've stated many times in this podcast before, his contract's going to be going down in value. By the end of it, it's only like 10% of the cap or something around that number. Teams are going to be looking for cheaper value deals for wings. And if Kuzma gets traded sometime this upcoming season, that opens up a ton for Bilal, because you have the fact that I think that they're going to be trying to tank again, and they're going to be punting on any sort of idea of having like they're going to be quote unquote competitive, but like I think Valanciunas will be gone by the deadline. I think Brogdon, if he's healthy, will be gone on an expiring contract by the deadline. I think Kuzma will be gone by the deadline. I think they're going to open everything up in the second half of the year for Sarr, for Bilal, and for Bub Carrington. Like I think that those three, the last 2 to 3 months of the season, are really going to take over the reins, and hopefully for the first time since really Bradley Beal and John Wall, they'll have something to look forward to in terms of a young core. I'm more on the side of, I think that Bilal still has a very long way to go, but what he has shown in terms of where he was at on that French team 2 years ago with Wemby to last year to now, the development track is starting to be there, where I at least think there will be signs that he could have star potential this upcoming season. I was always a little lower on him in the draft just because I have the anti-French bias. Apparently, I was also lower on Richeche, and he looked awesome in preseason last night. But the thing about him is that he has every tool, he has everything that he needs to succeed. It's just about like, can he become a shot creator? Can he become a guy who you can actually give the ball to and let him kind of cook a little bit? Because I think that the idea, the people that were high on him were like, even if he quote unquote fails, he'll probably still be a good role player. This season is about whether he shows, can he have the potential to be a future star, or can he be, someone who is just like a high impact role player. And I think he's definitely got a chance to prove this season in Washington, because they just, I mean, like, once again, like we talked about it in the over-unders podcast that we did, they're going to be dog shit again. There's no reason for them not to give it. And I think that they got when this new front office took over, I think they gave them, all right, we like the next 2 to 3 years, we can be bad. Like we're going to finally, for the first time ever, lean into the tank. And when you are bad, you need to figure out what guys are early. And if he shows that this upcoming season, then you have a building block. And, if he doesn't do that, then, maybe you can look in the next draft and see who else is potentially out there. So it's an interesting first pick. I didn't expect you to take him with the first pick. Cause like you said, going into year 2, still incredibly raw.
Yeah.
And once again, has a long way to go. But based on where I remember watching a little bit of him when he was on Wemby's team, just even in that year in between, he's made like a massive leap. And if he continues on that same track, then he'll be pretty good this upcoming year or two. So he was on my list under the category one young player who will become a high impact player or clear future star. I had him towards the end of the list, but I did mention him. So I'll go over that a little bit later, but good first pick. Definitely not a name that I expected to hear this early.
That's how I know I'm keeping you on your toes.
Let's get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have my first pick I'm going to pick from is the one star who will be a superstar. Ooh, so by the way, record for ball right now, we're 17 minutes in and we're already on the second pick. I don't know how this has possibly happened. No. I thought it was going to be at least at the 30 to 40 minute mark, but no. We're making progress over here.
I can go through what I saw in the sculpture garden and like just show the photos on my phone.
Sam at a haunted house tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Halloween's coming up.
Here's the grits I had. If anyone wants to take them up.
You did not go to the place I told you to go get oysters. It's fine. We'll have to do it sometime in the future. Yeah. All right. So this is my next pick. One star, current star who will become a superstar. So here are my candidates for this: Alperen Şengün, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, Franz Wagner, Desmond Bane, and Tyrese Maxey. Yeah. And this is the Ball podcast. Oh, okay. Before we continue here, someone saying, is Chet's shot broken now? We do this every preseason, guys. It never matters. Guys change their shot every offseason. And it never actually matters. And here's the thing. The only times it has mattered, Jason Tatum, yes, obviously. But also, I just want to throw this out there. Jason Tatum is still a good free throw shooter. He's still good on catch and shoots. He literally just had a wrist injury that fucked up his pull-up shot ability. He also got super strong, and that messed with his touch a little bit. A lot of these guys change their shot after they can't shoot. And then everyone goes, oh, they broke their shot. Chet shot, Alex Spears posted this the other day. Chet shot like 26 to 28% from January on, I think, from 3 last year. He started off super hot. He couldn't miss. And then it dragged down his injuries the last few months of the season. So if they are changing their shot, especially OKC with Chip England, I would imagine that they are only changing his shot if he obviously had something wrong with it and they needed to fix it. I think Chet's shot's going to be fine is what I'm trying to get at here. I think that everyone's overreacting to preseason. This happens every year. Everyone goes, what did they do to his shot? And then it ends up being fine as long as they're a decent shooter with good touch. So anyway,
Chet talking to Chip England like he's one of the bad guys from Chappie. Doing a Diane tour. Like, guys, I don't know. Actually, is that who you're picking? Is Chet? Or
it's not Chet. I needed to rant a little bit because I keep seeing people say this, and that's one of my things is that the changing the shot thing only we do a memento thing with our brains where we do it's like a Mandela effect where everyone goes, well, they changed it. Like Markelle Fultz was already injured and couldn't shoot. That's why they changed his shot. They changed his shot mainly after his rookie season, when he was a terrible shooter. And then everyone's like, oh, well, they changed his shot, so he can't shoot anymore. It's like, no. He was already hurt and already had some performance issues in workouts and stuff like that. It just drives me insane. But anyway. I'm not taking Chet Holmgren, although I did consider him because I watched 5 minutes of the Thunder preseason game the other night, and the second that Hartenstein and Caruso checked in, Chet turned into Giannis for like 5 minutes. It was unbelievable. I was like, dude, they're going to be so good this year.
Yeah,
Him and J-Dub were fucking killing it in that game. But when those two checked in, I was like, these two should start with those guys and Shea because it just opens up everything for their team. So I actually think that those two would be totally fine picks, Jalen Williams and Chet. And I actually think the Nerds, I originally thought that the Nerds got a little bit over their skis with J-Dub, but looking at his stats, he was really, really good. He was really, really good. For a second-year wing, even at his, like, he's a little bit older. He was 21 as a rookie, 22 in the second year. He is, like, going to be extremely good, and I think even better now that the team is better. They got rid of the basketball criminal and actual criminal Josh Giddey. I was thinking about that trade today, and I was like, what a bad trade,
God, damn.
One of the worst trades we've ever seen, folks.
I can't believe that. I don't think I've ever reacted the way I thought when they said it's just a straight up trade where there's no picks. I wanted to march down to the league offices. This Chris Paul trade.
It's unbelievable. I went back and I watched our reaction to that trade, and we were all like, this is a disaster. What do they do? Like, and last night during the Bulls preseason game, Giddey just wasn't trying at all on defense, and he missed all 3 threes he took, including a horrible air ball. And I was like, don't trade with Presti, dude. Like, do not make that trade with Presti. Like, the worst GM might have just made a trade with the best GM, and it's just...
yeah, man.
Anyway,
Giddey is so bad it might make me like go back on my like Buzelis hate. That like maybe Buzelis will
Buzelis innocent.
Yeah, Buzelis like might be innocent. Like this might turn me into a Buzelis defender, but by the time the season actually starts, so
he's such a unique evil force that he can make. It's like Hitler in World War II. Stalin in America.
Yeah.
Buzelis and Sam coming together.
Yeah, Buzelis is my Stalin, you know. Like maybe there'll be a Cold War once they trade Giddey off, and I'll, you know, get involved. I'll hire a Dulles brother and Will to come in and, you know, prepare, let's say, the global South for to save from behind the Iron Curtain.
But yes, I have not made my pick yet. We threw in an extra 5 minutes of riffing there since people said we were washed for not making the second pick at 40 minutes in. So I'm taking Tyrese Maxey. I feel like I watched him obviously play against the New Zealand Breakers the other night, which is always good when you're trying to gauge a preseason game against the New Zealand Breakers, Jonah Bolden's own, is always a good level to gauge how much better a guy looks. But every preseason, Maxey kind of does this, where he comes just absolutely destroying out of the gates, looking 5 times better than he was the season before. Famously, 2 years ago, he came out and he made his first 4 threes against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first quarter. The other night, speaking of someone who might have altered their shot, last year, it's actually very funny. We might need to look into Drew Hanlon's training tactics for catch and shoots, because Tatum is still one of the best catch and shoot wings in the NBA. Maxey might be the best catch and shoot guard other than Steph in the NBA. And they're both still very good on those things. Maxey actually improved a little bit touch-wise in certain departments last year. But the pull-up 3 was fucked up for Maxey last year. And so they altered that shot, and it looked... As Mike O'Connor from Rights Ricky Sanchez said on Twitter, it looked like Damian Lillard was taking these threes. And they clearly made his release a little bit quicker. He was able to get the shot off over taller guys. It helps when you're playing against the New Zealand Breakers for sure. I'm not going to say that is the the end-all be-all, but just looking at Maxey's development track from where he was at as a rookie, he went from, rookie year, like, fringe rotation player, solid energy guy off the bench, to second year, legit NBA starting guard, third year, fringe all-star, fourth year, actual all-star, still on the lower end, in that 15 to 24 range in terms of the all-stars, not one of the top 15 guys in the league, obviously. I think he makes the leap to all NBA this year. I think that he is going to, the pull-up three will regress back to a normal number. Playing on a team that has all these athletic wings and defensive guys that are versatile compared to last year, I think will be work wonders for him on the defensive end. I think it will help cover up some of the issues that he has had on that end in his career so far. I would imagine in the non-Joel minutes, as I've talked about before, having Andre Drummond in there as someone who can set screens and he can kind of work around like he did the other night in their first preseason game is going to be great. Having a second option like Paul George, who's a great catch and shoot guy who can also create some offense and get Maxey off the ball more when he's not, when Joel Embiid is not playing. And then in addition to that, being one of the second, best second bananas in the NBA when Joel Embiid is on the court, and just taking more of a leap as a primary on-ball guy. I think that Maxey right now is probably perceived as somewhere, if you had to rank like the 35 best players in the NBA, his range would probably fall somewhere from like 24 to 38 right now for most people. Like, I think that that's the range that he's in. I think 1 year from now, when we're talking about him, we will be saying he's like more like a top 15-ish player. He's a clear all-NBA talent. He's a guy who gets better in the playoffs. He's maybe the best second option in the NBA. Kevin O'Connor did his 10 best second options in the NBA and didn't even include Maxey on it. First off, that's wrong. He should already be included on there. But I think in this next year, it will be universal consensus that Maxey's one of the 15-ish best players in the NBA, and that he will only be 24 years old still. He turns 24 in like a month. And he hasn't even entered his prime. And I think that, as I've said before, we should probably stop putting a ceiling on him. But I've kind of got to the point where, like, I think his career outcome now is going to be something along the lines of a Damian Lillard or Donovan Mitchell level player. Like, I think that's the range of player that he will be in throughout the course of his prime. In a few years from now. And I'm really excited. So I'm taking Maxey. I think Maxey's considered at least a fringe superstar, if not a full-on superstar, a year from now.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that he wasn't all NBA, I had to look it up. I forgot that he didn't make all NBA, and it always I feel like we should do all NBA voting after the playoffs. Because Maxey, what Maxey did in the playoffs, to me was so much more important than anything that went on during the season. There aren't 15 guys in the NBA who can affect a playoff game and single-handedly take it over the way that Maxey did. Yeah. I feel like in that Knicks series against.
I think the issue was Joel getting hurt and then Maxey's numbers suffering due to that. And also, him not, I don't think he was ready to be a number one option last year is what I'm trying to get at. And I think this year in spurts, he will be able to take on that a little bit better than he did last year. Now he knows what defensive coverage is to see. He has more of a supporting cast around him to help him through that. And I think that is going to be the major difference. It's right now we know, and I agree with what you're saying, but he still did need Joel Embiid. I think a year from now, we might be talking about him. Like I said, he might be more in that Mitchell Dame role, which is really around the age that they started to break out, was 24 years old.
Right.
That kind of guy where he can't, Mitchell can work with other stars, but he also can take over a game when you put the ball in his hand in a way that it really didn't, Maxey wasn't able to do it sustained over the course of a season. I think he'll be able to this upcoming year.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to justify the fact that I didn't have Maxey on my list at all, because in my mind he had kind of arrived, I expect him to be in the mix for all NBA for his career kind of going forward. I expect him to be kind of like young Dame was, you know what I'm saying? I think Dame is probably a pretty good comparison, even though Maxey's younger than Dame was in the same fourth or fifth year in the league. Dame was
Dame made all NBA in his age 23 season. That's the one difference. And if you look at his stats, Maxey's stats were actually a little bit better, even if you adjust for era, like they were a little bit better. But the difference is that Dame was the number one option on his team that year.
Yeah.
And like it matters if you're the number one guy on your team versus the number two guy on your team. And I think that but in general, like, I mean, I think that he's at least working towards reaching that. Like, I mean, at his peak, Damian Lillard was one of the 10 best players in the NBA for 3 or 4 years. So that's the kind of track that he could potentially be on. And I think that we're going to be like, I think that the improvements that he's shown over the last year and the last 2 years specifically will continue to just kind of go on that same track. And it's going to be kind of undeniable. He still has so I think Maxey's a very high approval rating. Don't get me wrong, but he definitely still has some skeptics. And I think most of that is just based on the fact that he wasn't able to carry the team without Embiid. And this season, he'll be way, way more set up to do that. But it's funny you say that about did you see the GM poll thing?
No, I didn't read any of that. What was
so one of the GM poll things was like, who will be the breakout star of this year? And a few of them were like guys who had already broke out, like Paolo Banchero and Victor Wembanyama and Jalen Williams, and John Morant was even on there. John Morant was the weird one where I was like, guys, I think John's broken out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what does he need to do at that point?
Yeah, like literally just stay off Instagram, and then he's
maybe that's what they meant. Like he's gonna log off.
the log out breakout that we see every year.
Yes.
But the thing I was going to say was in that I do agree with what people are saying. Like, these guys have already broken out, but I think the GMs, except for the job one, I think the GMs were thinking in the same realm that I'm thinking right now in terms of the qualifications are these guys are clear stars. They're going to become superstars this upcoming season. Like, it's going to be undeniable that these guys are, some of the 15 best players in the league that you can build around, as opposed to, other than Wemby there. Obviously, everyone thinks that Wemby's kind of already there.
Right.
Most of those guys are kind of a tier below that could take the next step this upcoming year. And that's why for the first pick, I chose Maxey, because my qualifications were one current star who will become a superstar.
Okay.
So, yeah, I probably should have included Paulo in there too. I forgot about Paulo. But, with the third pick in the breakout player draft, Sam Sheehan selects.
All right. So there's a young player on the Timberwolves. He's in his early 20s. Everyone knows the guy that I'm selecting here. That's right.
Hold on. I was going to say the highest approval rating in the league and amongst Minnesota Timberwolves fans.
That's right. It's Nas Reid, folks.
Yep.
Nas Reid. He's got all the makings of like, this is like exactly. I mean, they're very different players, but honestly, this reminds me kind of a lot of Pascal Siakam's breakout year, where pretty similar, I mean, Pascal did start like next to Kawhi, but like,
what you're trying to say is they got rid of a fraud loser, Kawhi Leonard.
Yes.
Karl Anthony Towns.
Yes. Both have won the same number of championships. After leaving the team.
It's impossible to say.
After leaving that team, they well, lots to say about it. Someday we're gonna have to look. We're gonna have to have a conversation about Kawhi Leonard. Is he the luckiest? Did he dodge the bullet? Because like low key, he's like very close to having a career where everyone's like on him, like having a Joel Embiid style career. Like, well, but he won with Tim Duncan.
Yeah, well, but also, I mean, the real thing with Kawhi is the fact that he had that 2019 run.
Yeah.
But if they do lose in the second round of the Sixers, no one would have blamed Kawhi because he was nails in that series.
Yes.
But if it is an interesting what if, because he's kind of in the same, like, obviously has a much higher peak in the playoffs, especially than Joel had. But the interesting part about that conversation to me is they're kind of similar in that the injuries derailing them, but also them still reaching like insane heights as players.
Yeah. Well, and also just like the demanding out and then going to LA, you know what I'm saying? And then like never ever being available for a full playoff series fucking ever. Like
the only person who's been on this is Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith has been saying for years about the Clippers and Kawhi. Well, Zach Lowe too, to be fair.
mean, I don't know, like ask Clippers fans if they thought it was worth it. I don't know.
I think a lot of Clippers fans, I don't think Clippers fans will ever blame Kawhi, because I think the Clippers fans they're probably like right now Paul George is the scapegoat. And if Lawrence Frank gets fired this season, Lawrence Frank will be the scapegoat. I don't think Kawhi's ever going to be the guy, because he was the first guy who ever chose them.
Right, but like for a reason, you know what I'm saying? This is like, it's like me marrying a doctor, and then it turns out she's a doctor of haunted houses,
literature.
And I actually have to pay all the bills, and I'm not allowed in any of the things. I have to drive her home from the bar every night, and
this is not exactly what I signed up for.
Yeah, exactly. This wasn't what I thought I was getting myself into. Anyway, Nas Reid.
Before you continue, Dre's comment here needs to be recognized. Kawhi is the Eli Manning of the NBA.
Show me the lie. Show me the lie. So yeah, I just so for like Nas Reid, I'm thinking of Nas Reid because he wasn't even a starter last year technically.
Yeah. By the way, he did win Sixth Man of the Year last year. Somehow I always forget about that award, but like it is significant to win that award at 23 years old.
Yeah, at 24, I think. So I think he's 25.
Okay, still
24, but like, you know, that's still not nothing. This is his fifth year in the NBA. That is third and fifth years are generally like stereotypical leap years.
Mm-hmm.
He's going through a drastic role change. He probably will not start with that drastic role change because I'm sure they're going to be forced to start Julius Randle, but this is going to be something underlying. I would say the entire Wolves season is they're going to have huge plus minus swings when Nas Reid comes into the game and Julius Randle leaves, and it's going to go the exact opposite every time Julius Randle plays with the starters, and it's going to become a thing. And I think that Nas Reid, you know, if he is coming off the bench, he's going to have more control. His spacing is going to be a lot more important for this team now. And I think that he's just I think people are going to kind of start to appreciate like how good of a player he was, because he was kind of the third. If you're the third big, you don't really get any credit. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Like it was like, oh, 6 man of the year, haha, he's great.
Third big on a team that starts two bigs too, so like they play big minutes.
Right, exactly. So it's like, you know, Rudy is Rudy, but like Cat is Cat, and you know we're talking about a guy who does both of their skill sets pretty well. Like not as good as either of them. Like he's not the shooter Cat is, he's not the defender that Rudy is, but he's a healthy medium of both. And I think that, you know, the Wolves are going to need that in a big fucking way next year. And I think that he is going to kind of ascend from the rotation player to like the surefire starter, like, you know, not an all-star or anything like that, but like recognized as one of the better starters in the NBA is the leap I kind of foresee for him.
He's 6'9". He can shoot the shit out of the ball. Once again, you're very playoff pilled. He had some huge moments in the playoffs. Almost, honestly, if he hits that shot at the end of game 2, was it against the Mavericks? Yeah. I can't remember. He probably is already on the radar a little bit more. But I think definitely, you know, like I said, 6 man of the year last year is going to play a more important role. Who knows? Like maybe the Julius Randle thing works. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe at some point they trade him. And Nas Reid has to step into a starter role on a team, like you said, that I think could use his shooting. I've been thinking about it more, and I don't know. The Timberwolves are one of the harder teams for me to figure out just because they're like so new now. Like they're probably going to have 2 rookies at least somewhat in their rotation, and Terrence Shannon Jr., even though I think he can play right away, and Rob Dillingham, who's going to be more of a long-term guy. Yeah. They actually do. I know that it sounds insane because they traded in a all-time big shooter for Julius Randle, who's like a below average shooter and like not someone you want taking a ton of shots. And as I said before, I think they have the worst shooting front court of any good team in the NBA next year. If you look at, I think the Wizards are probably one of the only teams that has a worse one, and they're starting Sarr and Valanciunas. But in terms of Randle, Rudy, and Jaden McDaniels, that's not great, which makes Nas Reid a lot more important to this team. And then if you look at the other spots, though, like Dante became a lights out shooter the last 2 years. Mike Conley, low key, I always forget he's like a really good shooter now.
Yeah.
Like, he was always pretty good, but he's like an insanely good shooter now. Ant, for a star wing with his skill set, is a very good shooter at a high volume. So they might be able to survive it. And I think Nas Reid will play a huge, huge part in making those lineups kind of viable spacing wise when one of Rudy or Randle sits on the bench, because he'll probably play the 5 when Randle is at the 4. He'll probably play the 4 when Rudy is at the 5. And yeah, I'm really interested to see kind of how we talk about him a year from now, as opposed to now, because I still think he's good, but I think he's a bit of a meme player in that like nerds like he became like a beloved figure in Minnesota and stuff, undrafted guy. Developed at home, obviously always like huge check marks in the positivity department and all those things. But now it's like really an opportunity for him to get a shot here to show that he can be more than that, because he'll probably be in their rotation. He'll probably be like their third, I guess, creator type. Like, because, you know, Conley will be the role player, kind of old man, gets everyone in the spots rolling, but they'll probably phase him out slowly, I would imagine, over these next few years, in a similar way to like, he's their version of like Al Horford, as we talked about. Like, he's like an older guy who's still savvy and can play, but you don't want to put a ton on his shoulders. Randle and Ant will be the starters, and then off the bench, it will be Nas and Dante will be kind of, you know, taking up some of that responsibility. So I'm really interested to see what Nas Reid looks like this upcoming year. That's definitely a good pick. I had him on my list. He was under the one role player who will become a very good role player in a new roller context next year. So that was where I put Nas Reid. He definitely has an opportunity to take a leap this upcoming season. So with my 4th pick, aka my 2nd pick, I'm going to pick from my category of one up-and-coming young player who will make the star leap. So I have a few names written down here.
Okay.
Amen Thompson, Jonathan Kuminga, Denny Avdia, Jaylen Johnson, Devin Vassell, and then I have one name for you that I don't think you're ready for. And I actually wouldn't even consider him a good player. Okay. I would say he's a bad player up until this point.
Okay.
I have been incredibly impressed with Jaden Ivey in the first 2 preseason games.
I have him on my short list.
I'm surprised by that, because you've always been an anti-Ivy guy. I liked him in the draft. And after a year or two, I was like, he's like not really a high-level creator. What is he? Like, he's just not efficient enough. Like, he has a ways to go before I can really consider him like a neutral level player. But the preseason now, I'm not over-indexing everything for preseason. The thing that I take mostly from his preseason, because he's shooting way over his head, he's not going to like do all that. The thing that I really take from his preseason is that he has a coach who doesn't actively hate his guts. That seems like it could be huge for him in this upcoming year. And one of the things I think that he, like I said, like, because he's not like, he doesn't have a great handle. He's not like a high level creator. It was always hard for me to figure out what his role was once he got into the NBA, because if you just let him run a ton of pick and roll, if you give him like an offense to run, it's not going to look great. Teams will dare him to shoot. You know, he's not a high level playmaker. Like it's a weird archetype to make work as like a starter star level player in the NBA. But the things that they've done in the preseason is they've gotten him off the ball more. They've gotten him going downhill where he is just unstoppable. And part of the reason why I loved him as a prospect was because he really is a crazy athlete who can live at the rim and the line. If you get him into the right positions, he's not going to necessarily generate his own offense. It's kind of similar to the role that Maxey had on the Sixers prior to Joel Embiid before they traded away James Harden. So when James Harden was still on the team and the offense ran through both Embiid and Harden, and he was the third guy, they're getting Ivey into these kind of advantageous positions, and his defensive effort looks way better right now than it ever has. He's always been kind of a bad defender for his tools and athleticism. He looks way more locked in. He made some like actual defensive playmaking stuff in the first few preseason games, and he looks like a totally new player. I still think Detroit is going to be. He's not my pick, to be clear. I just want to. The fact that I included him, I wanted to talk about him a little bit.
I didn't pick him either, but a lot of the same things. Because my thing that I have against Ivey is just they're too invested in Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
And like Jaden Ivey plays the same position as Cade Cunningham. You can't play them together. You'd have to run Jaden Ivey off the bench when Cade's not on the floor. And that's just inherently limiting for a guy that you picked, fifth overall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like fifth pick.
Yeah, fifth pick.
And also, by the way, another thing, they never really seemed like they wanted him. Remember they wanted Keegan Murray and he went one pick ahead. They tried to trade the pick twice on draft night. Weaver was kind of about drafting him. They hire Monty, who hates he's not a stereotypical coach's player. Like, he was always going to take a long time to kind of figure out his role in the NBA. Yeah. And it seems like JB Bickerstaff and the new staff is at least they know how to use him better, at least.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think he's going to get more of a shot here. I still have my same concerns long term because I just don't think, I don't think that they've paid Cade Cunningham $30-something million a year. There's
max contract is $40 million.
Oh God. Well, we're gonna talk about it right now. But Jaden Ivey, I would like to see Jaden Ivey. I would like to cut to the place where Jaden Ivey gets more of a chance to play unencumbered. Whether that means Cade Cunningham out for a long period this time, or him moving to a new situation.
Yeah. I did a podcast with it's called the Drop Step Podcast. Jack Quantrill, who we've had on the stream before, asked who were some of the best second draft guys that the Nets could look forward to in this upcoming season. And his first guy was Jaden Ivey. And I was like, I didn't even think of that. So basically, if it gets to the point where they're because we're getting close to the point where they're going to have to make a decision on if they want to pay Jaden Ivey. And if they're at next deadline and they've made their choice and they choose between Cade and Ivey and they choose Cade and they don't think those two could work together, which I actually do think they might be able to figure out a way to get them to play better, but that's another conversation for another day. But if they do get to that point where they choose that, the Nets have a bevy of players to trade for that can help impact winning now, whether it's Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton, one of those guys that
Cam Johnson on that team
would be a great fit. Yeah,
it's exactly what they need. If you want to be serious, I think Cam Johnson for Jaden Ivey, and whatever else you need to make that work. I think that's a bones of a fine trade.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were going to pick fourth. You were going to.
So yeah, I'll take Jaylen Johnson.
Oh, another leap. Interesting.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
He was good last year. His stats are good. And he was this guy's a starter.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of their preseason game last night, and I still think he has a ways to go as a creator. I don't think he's going to be creating a ton of his own offense in the half court. I think that he's going to be the guy that pushes them in transition. He's basically going to be what I always wanted Ben Simmons to be for the Sixers. Yeah. He's not the passer Ben is, and he's not the level of defender that Ben is, but he's passable at both of those things. And he's got much better touch. He's a good shooter. Yeah. He's becoming a good shooter. I shouldn't say he's a good shooter. His shot looked great last night in the preseason game I watched. He can impact the game in a number of ways. Good rebounder. I think that they're going to involve a lot of actions with him and Trey, 2-man game, and I think that's going to open up a ton of shit for him. And I think that he will be maybe not selected as an all-star this year, but he will be in the all-star conversation, which a year ago I could have never imagined that for Jaylen Johnson. He wasn't even on my radar really a year ago. I was like, oh yeah, he's whatever. He's you were big on Jaylen Johnson before I was. I remember you telling me about how you thought he looked pretty good in the Celtics series. against the Hawks last year. And I was more of a skeptic. And in this last year, he's impressed me a lot. And we talked about it on the over under episode we did on the Patreon. Like, I'm kind of, this is the highest I've been on the Hawks in a while, is all I'm going to say.
Woo!
I don't think they're going to win 50 games, but it wouldn't shock me if they win close to over 40 games this upcoming year. Yeah. And I think that they'll be solidly in that play and mix. The one thing that I don't love about them, and we talked about this in the Discord the other day, their depth isn't great. Yeah. But like, I watched the game last night and like Richeche looks ready to go. Like he can play. And if he can play and he can start, that starting five becomes more interesting to me, even with a Wash Capella. Larry Nance still looks like he's got some juice in the tank. Like there are ways for this team to be super competitive next year. And I think that Jaylen Johnson taking that step to becoming, like, I could have picked one of these other guys, but I think that they have a further way to go than Jaylen Johnson. Yeah. I still think most of them, especially guys like Amen Thompson, and Denny Abdi, like they're going to be good next year. But I think that the massive step that will be taken this upcoming season in terms of role, in terms of, it's just a guy we talk about all the time on the podcast is like potentially having a breakout. I think Jaylen Johnson will be the one of this group that this upcoming season, long term, I might take some of these guys over him if they really pop in the next few years. But in terms of right now, like I'm kind of in on the Hawks as like a competitive play-in team.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you there. I think that it makes more sense around Trae Young, right? Like I think that they've been a disaster for 2 years around that. I still am a little concerned about the big position, but again, if Clint Capella can just be normal, like what do we find out? Clint Capella's like what? He's not 30 yet. He's like 29.
It's weird though, because he has that archetype of big where like when you're washed, you kind of become useless. I know that's kind of harsh, but like because he's so reliant on like vertical athleticism and he does not look physically the same. But like this is if speaking of a guy that like I've been a little bit lower on, I know nerds love him, but like Okongwu needs to show some shit this year because this is his real opportunity.
We'll come back to Okongwu next podcast.
Okay. So sign up for the Patreon if you want to hear that. Yeah. But I actually like I said, like Larry Nance is one of those guys that just like another guy that's kind of washed, but he's just a good basketball player. Yeah. Like he just makes shit happen. Yeah.
The passing, I love when bigs can pass, and he's like a big who like understands passing. Like again, he's not the above the rim like athlete that he was like when he was younger, and again like that hurts a little bit, but like he just knows how to play. He can screen. He does all of that stuff. I think he's going to be like I think he's going to help. I think he's going to be like weirdly important to the Hawks, which I guess is maybe a little damning with faint praise.
It is, but like he still always is one of those guys that has really good on-off numbers, and I think it's just because he's kind of he's a jack of all trades, master of none. But that's fine if you're a backup big. Like if you're a backup big and you want him to play 15 to 20 minutes a game, then like he's just overall skilled. He brings something to the some value on each end of the court, and I think that this Atlanta team, like Dyson Daniels looked good last night. Like there are so many guys that I have historically not been high on. Richeche, Dyson Daniels, Jaylen Johnson, who I've just come around on this year, that I think that can make a real impact for this team. And Bogdan didn't even play, and I think he's their second best player right now. And Jaylen Johnson could pass him this upcoming season, but.
Hoopify voice. Do we owe Landry Fields an apology? Is Landry Fields cooking?
He did not make the DeJounte Murray trade. I'll say that much. That was ownership. Yeah. And I think that both Schlenk and him are a little bit like they get a pass on that because I think that I don't even think Landry Fields was in the building yet, or if he was at like a lower level. He got promoted later in that year. I think that like other than the DeJounte move, I'm not sure about Kobe Buffkin, like he's whatever to me, but that was their pick last year. But like right now, things like it looks like he's doing a good job is all I'll say.
Didn't they have AJ Griffin too?
They did have AJ Griffin. That's not really their fault though. Like
I know, but it's like a funny thing to like have the interviews.
They're cursed.
Yeah, to have the interviews like, oh, this guy's gonna be like a great shooter, and then just have him go, you know what?
Yeah, the 2022 offseason was just a disaster for them. It really is like a franchise altering to miss on the Griffin pick and not have it be your fault at all, and then also make the DeJounte trade is just tough. But Will's pointed this out, like next year, the Spurs and the Hawks just have to swap picks. And it's not like the Spurs are like close to contention or anything. Like that might not even swap.
No, I was gonna say I don't think they're gonna swap that.
Like, and even if it does, it might only be a few spots. Like the West is still really hard. The Spurs are still a long way away. Like this year, they could be like that. Might be like it would probably be like the 16th to 19th pick, which you can live with. And then the real question becomes, what does this Trae Young extension look like? And if they keep Trae, I don't think that pick 2 years out is going to be all that bad either. And I think the road to keeping Trae is Richeche, Dyson Daniels, and Jaylen Johnson all being just like legit good young players that fit well around him.
Oh, and Bogdan, like they've got so much shooting around him, which is like what you fucking needed this whole goddamn time. Like I don't know. If you have a heliocentric player, God forbid you put good spacing around him.
Well, I mean, they made the conference finals when they had Herter and Bogdan, and then they, for some reason, decided to whatever.
Anyway,
they made mistakes, and now they've kind of righted some of their wrongs over the last few years. I do think it would be great for the bid if they just go 41-41. Yeah. They're just the perfectly mid team again.
The Boston Red Sox of basketball.
Historically, that like at one point they were exactly 500 last year in their history.
Yes.
Hawks.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, dude, they were. What was it?
It was a full season where they never went. I think it was 2 years ago. They never went more than 2 games above 500 or 2 games below 500.
That's what I was going to say. The No Dunks guys were tracking this. That it was like 30 games where they were within like a game of 500 all year. Like so,
it was incredible.
So good.
Perfectly mid. I'll take him with the 4th pick. I know we talk about him a ton, but like. I think that he's someone who has a great opportunity to put his name on them. He really is just a nerd favorite. I just want to say, like all the guys I mentioned, other than Denny, like Kuminga's a well-known name. Amen Thompson's become a pretty well-known name, I would say. Jaden Ivey is, former high pick. Like Jaylen is really just, I think he moves past the nerd favorite stage and becomes a clear future or makes the star leap this upcoming season. So Jaylen Johnson is my pick. So with the 5th pick.
So there's a couple of different ways I could go here. Injuries have impacted some of the guys I really wanted to take. And at this point in the draft, I think I'm just going to take some of the injured guys that like I wanted to take. I'm going to pick a shooting guard that I talk about a lot on this podcast. That's right. I'm picking Shaden Sharp
He's already hurt again, though.
That's what I just said. Yeah, like the joke being that I was doing Trey Murphy. But, but Shaden Sharp, year 3.
Wait, did you just call him a shooting guard?
Shooting guard.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Big Will has gotten to me.
I can't believe he's finally admitted Shaden Sharp is a shooting guard. Anyway, continue.
Oh my God, he admitted. He's like still like, pretty good volume. He had a quote unquote down shooting year last year, and he was still like 34%, 33%. Like
he could shoot, yeah.
Like on like decent volume, like 5 attempts a game. Like, and he's got the athleticism, he's hurt. He's trapped in a fucking log jam.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to start getting, we talked about the Blazers. We talked about how, NBA champion Joe Cronin with his Boston Celtics championship ring is probably one of the like top GM like casualty like guys who's
back against the wall most pressure when we did the last episode. Yeah.
So I think that he's going to be trading some of these guys that were like not Brendan, because I don't think Anthony Simons was his front office. I think that was Olshey, right?
He extended him, but he did not draft him. Correct.
Yeah. So like, I don't think he's like tied to Anthony Simons, and I think that they're going to be looking to trade like Anthony Simons and to kind of put Shaden in like a little bit of a bigger role. I think that if Scoot is dog shit this year, I think that they're going to be more willing to just yank the plug and kind of relegate Scoot to a like a 6-man role.
They wanted him in that role before Sharp got hurt. So I think that they wanted to ease him in again this year.
So like he's already hurt. He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So that probably means 7 weeks. So, he's already going to miss time, and maybe, he's not exactly an Iron Man. Like, I think his first 2 years in the league, he's gotten hurt both of those years, like with similar, like just like a missing 17 games or something like that each year.
I have a Bill prediction here when they talk about the Blazers on the Over Under podcast.
Okay.
So like this guy, he sits out a year. He doesn't play at Kentucky.
Let's go.
I don't know. I just think that means something. Like, you don't play basketball look at James Wiseman. He does not play basketball for Mitchell Robinson did the same thing. Like, every one of these guys that just sat out for a year.
Yeah.
He's going to point to, they just can't stay healthy. Like, you got to keep playing basketball at a high level. You can't just take a year off.
You can't just take years off.
Look at Ben Simmons.
That's so true, Bill. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. But like, again,
wait, was Shaden Sharp hurt in college? I think he actively, I don't think he was. I think he chose to sit out. I think he had like some weird, I could be wrong with this. I think he had a weird injury or some weird eligibility stuff. And then he chose all year they were hyping him out like he was going to play. And then they decided around like February, he was just going to sit the year out.
Yeah, it was something like that where like I thought there was like an eligibility thing too.
Yeah.
Like, there was some sort of like something where I kind of got the impression that he actually wanted to play. Because the other thing about Shaden Sharp is he's a guy, unlike
he's a dog.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Like he has like big returns on like he's a hard worker, does all this other shit. And when you're like hard worker and an athlete
with good touch,
I
can't give up on him. He's one of my guys I can't quit, even if it's the injuries and like the production isn't there.
And it was like fine, you know what I'm saying? Like, and like again, he was on a crowded. Again, the Blazers are one of the weirdest rosters in the NBA, where it's like it legitimately goes like 13 deep with like NBA talent, but like none of it's like super good. So like
me guys.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna start paring some of that down. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if Shaden gets more of a chance in those situations to cook a little bit more, I think he's a pretty obvious. This is not like a risky pick. I'm not like knocking anyone's socks off.
No, I didn't have him on my list because I forgot about him.
Oh, okay.
Because I just forget because he gets injured all the time.
That's the thing. Like, he's just such I don't know. I think he's like one of the clearest, like, that guy's going to be good guys. Cause he's 21. Like, this upcoming season is his age 21 season. Like, and he was a good 3-point shooter or like a decent 3-point shooter on good volume. I think he was 35 and 33, which is not good, but that's not bad.
And he's shown enough touch that I think that the 3-point shot will get there. The more important thing to me for young players is always volume.
Yeah.
Because if you're not willing to take threes, honestly, that's the one thing that I'm not worried about it, because I love Reed Shepherd, and he was like my guy, both of our guys in this draft. Yeah. But like, he needs to take more than 4 threes a game. Like, he should be taking 9 threes a game. You're an elite shooter. Shoot. I want you to shoot. And the thing with Sharp is that he's not afraid to let it fly. Yeah. And if he can get healthy, I agree with you. And I also know for a fact, I've talked to Portland people, they like love him. Like, they like are like of all. I always hear positive buzz coming out of teams, but like, he's the guy that I hear the most positive buzz coming out from like every corner for the Blazers, and they think long term he's going to be like a special player. So I would imagine that they have a lot invested in his success, especially that front office for sure. So
So I think that, if there's a little pressure on that front office, it behooves them to like speed up his development and clear out some of these other guys, trade Anthony Simons to some team for picks and dead salary or something, like something like that is going to happen. So that's my pick for a breakout guy.
Okay. So for my pick, the 6th pick in the breakout player draft, I will be selecting one role player who will become a very good role player in a new role or context. My list of candidates here are, I haven't even decided to make my pick. I'm literally just making them on the fly. I made a list of candidates. Najee Marshall, now on the Dallas Mavericks. Deuce McBride, now with Dante DiVincenzo gone and some of the roles moved around there a little bit, he's going to have more of a role with the Knicks. Aaron Nesmith, not necessarily a new role or context, but I think as a 4th or 5th guy, he's always someone that I've been a little bit lower on historically, but he showed me a lot last year. And actually, it's funny. I went back and I revisited our 2020 draft contract extensions podcast. And Nesmith was the guy that I think I was the most wrong on. Like, I went back and was like, I don't really get this. Why are they paying him right now? And now he's like on like a scam contract, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the more forward-looking moves from that front office to get a playable wing who can shoot, defend, rebound, all the stuff that you were a little bit higher on that. You were like, I think the long-term move with Nesmith, this will be good. Yeah. And that turned out to be one of the better contracts from that draft class for the front office personally. So that was my biggest miss by far. Like I was skeptical on Okongwu, and I think that's proven to be a little bit.
You were correct.
Yeah, I was not as high on that as other people were. And there were a few guys, but he was the one that I really missed on. Like, I think that's a home run for the Pacers front office to get him on that deal. Yeah. Other Pacer, Andrew Nembhard, will be in a bigger role this year, I'd imagine. Probably start alongside Aaron Nesmith as well. Nas Reid, who we already talked about. Emmanuel Quickley, Tyus Jones, Gershon Yabusele, Philadelphia 76er.
Yep.
Chris Dunn. And my last one, and this is very out of character for me, but I think I might take this player. I think I'm going to go with Gary Trent Jr.
I thought about him. I literally had him on my list.
I've always been a little bit lower on Gary Trent Jr. And I know that he got hurt already in preseason. He's going to be fine. It wasn't a major injury.
Yeah.
But the Bucks have just really lacked anyone that is like an athlete. Yeah. Really, it feels like for a few years now, just someone who can. I know that defensively he hasn't been great. He's a decent defensive playmaker, but he gets burnt a lot on the ball, and he tends to take risks that aren't really worth it. I think in this defensive context, I think that he'll show out a little bit more. He'll have Giannis and Lopez on the back line. He will. There's still going to be games where he struggles for sure. Like, historically, he's always struggled with the Tyrese Maxey matchup. I know, just watching him when he played for the Raptors. I think that he'll still continue to struggle a little bit with wings that have size for sure. But I think that he'll do enough. He'll be much better than Malik Beasley was in that role at a minimum. Yes. And I think that is something that the Bucks really have needed. And we don't know what's going on with Chris Middleton's injury. Like, if Chris Middleton is out for an extended period of time, they actually might be able to use another guy that can just occasionally cook. And as good as Malik Beasley was as a spacer for them, he's not a guy that you want to let do that. And Gary Trent Jr. at least has a little bit more creation ability. Once again, the passing and the defending, not great. But working off of, he's never had the chance to work off of true superstars before. And he'll have that chance working off Giannis and potentially Dave if he has a bounce back season this upcoming year. And I think that just as a fifth starter on this team, and then maybe sometimes when Middleton, if he can scale up his role a little bit when Middleton is out, I think Gary Trent Jr., sneaky, still pretty young. He's like 25 years old. He's playing for a contract. Like, this is a guy that a year ago thought he was going to get like $18 million a year, and now he's getting the league minimum. He has a lot to play for. So he wants to get back up to that like mid-level exception role. To me, this is this year's version of the Kelly Oubre, Derek Jones Jr. Style of veterans minimum deal that a year from now, we're not going to be saying that he's like an all-star or anything, but he's a solid starter and he can fit on a winning team. And he hasn't proven that so far in his career, and he's only really had flashes. But I think that he will improve his stock the most out of any of the guys in this tier. So I'm going to go with Gary Trent Jr.
That's a good one. I had him on my short list for pretty much every reason that you just laid out right now. Like, he's going to be very important to that team. He's playing for a contract. He's got a history and a skill set that is going to make him productive on good teams, especially in the role that he's in. He's going to excel at that. And yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. The Derek Jones Jr., the Kelly Oubre, like that. Those are the type of guys. These guys who sort of play
MLE deal guys. Up until last year, there was always questions about those two: Derek Jones Jr. offensively, Kelly Oubre defensively. Can they impact winning on a good team? And I think they both proved that last year, and that's what Gary Trent Jr. will do this year. Yeah, he just needed to find the right team.
Yeah, he just needed to be on like a He just needed to be on a normal team, and I think that is. I think that's been pretty good for him. All right, let's pick
6'7" for you. Uh-oh. What are you
think-
cooking up? You cooking up
I think
a
I'm gonna do it.
masterpiece? Pull the trigger.
What if this upcoming year? What if we get curious? What if we get curious, Mike? And we take a look at a leap from Michael Porter Jr.
I would have never expected this from you.
What if I was looking around the league? I was looking at like various things. I was looking for like a guy in this thing. I was like, like the team needs to kind of change around them. You kind of need another guy on the downswing for him to like kind of cannibalize.
Sure.
Stuff. If Jamal Murray is just like bad, I don't think Jamal Murray he's not just bad.
He got injured. Look, I usually think those excuses are bullshit, but it's obvious he was not healthy especially in the Olympics. Like,
sure,
if he's that bad now, this is just like a Markelle Fultz mid-career, like brain breaking.
He'll be better than that, but like if he can't hold down, like not having KCP that's gonna be tough for the Nuggets. They're gonna have to fill in around that. Aaron Gordon still can't shoot. What if like what if like Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and Julian Strawther are all disasters?
They're gonna need someone.
Like someone is gonna need to get some shots up. And Trump could be in the White House next year.
I was gonna say, what's better for him? Trump winning or Trump losing?
If Trump's in the White House next year.
Gordon Hayward was the January 6th game. Trump lost.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, we could see election fraud, Mike, also might be good.
True.
Like,
yeah.
It turns out that
who's controlling the hurricane in Florida right now, Mike?
Yeah, exactly. He could talking about weather machines in Denver, he could be like something special.
Which honestly, if global warming destroys everything Zach Lowe style, Denver's one of the best places to be, undeniably, to hide from the weather machine.
Yeah, I know. Why do you think he's living up there? Yeah. He's got the weather machines.
He's got so much motivation to not live on the coast and get traded now.
Yeah, he's got to play his way into his contract.
Yeah, wow.
Stay out of Miami. You don't want to be down there. Yeah. It also, loser points out, Denver's closer to the space laser too.
True.
So,
in all seriousness, I hope everyone who lives in Florida that listens to the podcast is safe.
Well, one, I hope you evacuated.
Yes.
Please evacuate.
Yes. If you've not already, it's kind of
I guess kind of
Jover. But if you're listening to this, yay.
Did you see that Carolyn Calloway is like, one, lives in Sarasota, and
on the beach? Yeah,
did not evacuate.
Her living right near Siesta Key just makes so much sense to me that she's refusing to evacuate. I was saying this. I was talking about this. Talking to Lauren about this earlier, and I was like, I kind of think that this is like she's fucking with people.
Yeah,
I kind of think she took that photo and was like, "LOL, I'm not leaving." Like
that
like,
would
if
be
you're that rich,
sense.
you know, like someone's in your ear. Like I really do. It really sucks. Like the people that are like. Outside of the one, I don't know if you saw the crazy rich lady on TikTok, but there's one crazy rich lady who like talks about like her husband who built their house with his hands. Yeah. And she's like, we're not leaving. Like she's the exception. Most rich people have people that are like, you need to get the fuck out of here.
I was at the gym today. My gym, for whatever reason, always has like Fox News in front of, they have all of the channels on, but the Fox News TV is in front of the exercise bikes. Yeah. And they were interviewing
where you go specifically.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like the exercise bikes. I just want to watch my so but I was on there. There was a guy, they were interviewing a guy, and he was like, I have to stay because I have to protect my house and my small business. And I was like, so like from the hurricane,
like that's what I never get is when people stay behind because they want to protect.
I'm like, must be looting. Like they must be like, oh, we're like the purge is gonna happen and they're gonna steal all of my.
Everyone's gone. Exactly. Anyone who has the ability to leave is leaving. Yes. And the people I guess it is looting fears, which is just such an irrational fear.
Such an insane thing.
It's a fuck.
It's gonna get destroyed anyway. I think it's surviving. What are you talking about? Like
God, people are so propagandized from fucking the racist media that we grew up with during Hurricane Katrina and all that shit.
Yeah, it's bad. But anyway, get out of there if you can. Carolyn Calloway, if you survive.
Sam's line is open. He's also a 30-year-old influencer in his 30s.
In my 30s, yeah,
close enough.
She and I we've crossed paths on.
I was gonna say she did live in New York at the same time as us, right?
Yeah. And we've she's retweeted me before.
Let's go.
So
I actually looked at our analytics earlier. We have Philadelphia is the highest for our listenership. New York is second, so it's possible that she listens to us.
Yeah, even though she quote unquote lives in Sarasota.
Which
is not true. Which is not true. I'm sorry. She's a creature of New York. There's no chance she's actually living in Florida full time.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to have been canceled so hard that you're pandering to the right to move to Florida if you're that rich and successful already.
Yeah, like she should have just stayed. No, it's like trying to move the Red Scare girls out of New York. It's never going to happen. That's like where they live. Yeah, that's where they live. Like no.
They will live and die in Ridgewood or wherever the cool new neighborhood to live in.
Times Square.
But yeah. So anyway, Michael Porter Jr. That's your pick.
Michael Porter Jr. Yes, I think I was looking at it like he's not that old. Like he's younger than you think he is.
There are so many 2018 draft guys I do this with because 2018 draft feels like so long ago. Gary Trent Jr., Mitchell Robinson, Mitchell Robinson's 25 years old.
Yeah. That's
like
nuts.
It breaks my brain that all these guys are still like 25, 26.
Yeah.
That the one thing I will say about Michael Porter Jr. is that I do feel like he has been maximized to this point, and it's going to be hard to overcome the fact that he's on a max contract and still have like a positive perception. But the difference is that he now has an opportunity especially during the non-Jokic minutes, because they're going to need it.
If he could add like a little bit of passing juice, like just a tiniest, like it doesn't need to be much, just a little bit of passing juice.
That's not going to happen.
Which is not going to happen. But like it would unlock so much for him. Like if he could just become like 2 years ago Jaylen Brown level passer, where it's like it's not good, but when he does it, it's like
he at least does it sometimes.
Yes, sometimes
he just doesn't pass now, and if he does pass, it's like it's one of the it's not like a quick pop pass, like it's like always like the ball kind of sticks and stops with him a little bit. But
for sure, he doesn't process quickly. So it's gonna be. But I could also see him just like randomly being like a 26 points per game scorer this year. I
love this pick. I literally would have never seen it coming. Not quite Davion Mitchell in the star in plain sight pick that you made a year ago, but I mean, you and Masai
sometimes you gotta go out on a limb on some of these, and that's what I'm doing.
I saw an account earlier. I don't want to spoil the name of the account, but they were talking about how deep. We always talk about that 2019 Raptors team and how deep they are.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is insane. We had Serge Ibaka, Fred VanVleet, all these guys coming off the bench, and OG didn't even play. Isn't that insane? And the name of this account was Davion Mitchell Muse. And I was like, oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Oh, no.
To be talking about how deep your team is, that OG Anunoby didn't even play in your finals run, to then change your name to Davion Mitchell Muse.
To the fact that you traded firsts for a front court of Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl. Like,
rules.
God damn,
absolutely rules. But I just got a real kick out of that to see how down bad it is right now.
Is he the third worst GM in the NBA right now?
Karnisovas is definitely worse because we lost Troy Weaver. Who's second? I guess we don't really have a second now.
It might be Joe Cronin for the time.
Yeah, I mean here Cronin's kind of in. I would call he's in the Raphael Stone zone.
Yeah.
Where a year ago I said it specifically on that podcast when we did the GM rankings.
Yeah.
I said I'm giving Raphael Stone a D right now, but I think in a year from now we could have him in the B or even the A tier if everything goes right with these signings, these draft picks, these guys developing. And a bunch of shit popped for the Rockets this last year. Everything fell into place, and now I would move him up.
Yeah,
sure. And that's where Cronin is right now. But some of these guys need to hit for him to move out of that bottom zone. And he's certainly, just based on results so far, he has to be towards the bottom. Like it's just the reality of like there are a lot of really good GMs, there are a lot of really good teams, and he hasn't shown much so far. And like I said, the clock's ticking with him. So. I would say Masai has been really bad the last few years, as we've talked about a lot on here.
He's in the bottom 5.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to do an update for that. I think we should do that in the season, the GM rankings update. We did it during the offseason last year. We'll have enough time in between to revisit and upgrade our rankings from last year. Okay, so on to the next pick, the 8th pick in this draft. I'm going to be selecting from my one young player who will become a high impact or future star tier. So in this tier, I have Nikola Jovic of the Miami Heat.
Okay.
I have Brandon Podziemski from the Warriors. I have Piss is going to kill me for this one. I have Xavier Tillman of the Boston Celtics.
Let's go.
I have Keon Ellis of the Sacramento Kings, Tari Eason of the Houston Rockets, because of course, and I'm also kind of trolling the Discord because they always make fun of me for my Tari love. Mm-hmm. I have Dyson Daniels of the Atlanta Hawks. Speaking of the Toronto Raptors, I have RJ Barrett on here.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm still kind of out on RJ Barrett, but he's shown me enough that there might be something there. I'm just almost always out on defensive, non-defensive wings. And I just don't believe in his defense, but the offense is definitely way better than it used to be at a minimum in Toronto. We'll see if it means anything, but, Moses Moody, also of the Warriors, Cason Wallace of the Thunder, Christian Brown of the Nuggets, Io Desumnu of the Bulls, and Bilal Coulibaly, who I talked about earlier. The last person I have on here, I don't know if he would be high impact or future star, but I want to take him just because.
Okay.
I considered pods. He's obviously very key to this podcast. We love pods.
I also consider pods.
And I do think that he will be a in the future. I think he will be a high impact player.
It's not the leap won't be this year. Yeah, the leap won't be this year.
I think 2 to 3 years from now, he's going to be a very good role player for a winning team.
Yeah.
The guy that I'm going to select here, because he's very near and dear to my heart, and he balled out at the end of last year, and he's balling out in preseason again. And I don't even know if he fits this definition technically, but I just love him and I have to take him, is Trey Mann of the Charlotte Hornets. Who,
wow. Okay.
I loved him in the draft. I was like, there's no way that this guy at least isn't a good 6-man in the NBA. His space creation is incredible. He was so fast. He reminded me a little bit of like a diet Kyrie in college. I didn't think he was quite as talented as Kyrie, because Kyrie literally has like the greatest handle of all time. And he's like a wizard with the ball, but he reminded me of that kind of archetype where he could kind of get wherever he wanted on the court. His step back was deadly. As I said, the space creation was awesome. He was a really good, tough shot maker. And he's still pretty young. I think he's 23 now. And last year I would have considered him almost because he just wasn't getting the opportunity with the Thunder, I would have considered him almost like a fringe NBA player. Just because it didn't really look like it was going to happen for him. He's 23. He'll turn 24 during the season. And here's where I think that I'm going to take a shot right now. And I think if we did our star in plain sight draft, I would have selected him.
Okay.
I think there's a chance he has a CJ McCollum type career where he's never fully an all-star, but he's always, his name's floated around there. He becomes a really good secondary option to have, good shooter, good creator, passable playmaker, but is never considered one of the best guys in the NBA. I think there's a world where he gets this opportunity with Charlotte and then he ends up either developing there or traded to a better team. And I think that he's a guy that, once again, it's hard to thread this needle with guys that are just small guards like him. There's very, very few guys that become, the level of player that even CJ McCollum becomes. But I've always saw it with the skills with him. It's just about opportunity. And he's finally starting to get that opportunity. And he looks like he's my favorite kind of hooper. He reminds me of the Iverson Kyrie type of hooper. And I just hope that he continues to develop his game, because I always loved him in the draft. I had him top 10 on my board that year. I didn't really do an official board, but I had him in that top 10 range. And that draft's turned out to be way better than I ever expected. So he probably wouldn't even be there. But I think that there's a chance that he could kind of bounce back this year and finally get the opportunity to show that. Going into his 4th year in the NBA, he's barely played. So I'm going to go Tre Mann with my pick here. I've basically only selected guards other than Jaylen Johnson, but that's just what I'm feeling today. So
I did not expect that. I was the Tre Mann CJ McCollum thing. I was
it's going to be an uphill battle for sure, but I love him so much. He's one of the few players that I tend to fall for this archetype of. Trey Burke was another guy that I really liked at one point. This is my kind of my weak spot. I would say the 2 weak spots I have are bozo wings like Tari Eason and Ron Holland. Love those guys. And then Hooper small guards like Trey Burke, Tre Mann that tend to like not always pan out, but when they do, it feels so good. Tyrese Maxey was another one I loved in the draft. So yeah, that's my guy, Tre Mann.
Tre Mann.
You're like Googling him like I don't even know anything about Tre Mann. I loved him as a prospect so much. I wanted him to fall to the Sixers so we could have Maxey and Mann as our backcourt. I was so Hooper filled in 2021. This was after the Hawks series, keep in mind, when the Sixers needed it so badly.
That's so funny.
But yeah, last year he averaged 12 points in his 28 games of Charlotte. He averaged 12 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds in 30 minutes a game. Keep in mind, most of this was Mickey Mouse March, so it's not really to take much from. 45, 36, 76 splits, and he's been hooping in preseason. And he'll probably be their 6th man next year, I'd imagine. And if LaMelo can stay healthy, I'm kind of starting to come around to just liking Charlotte a little bit. Not this year, but long term, if they can ever figure out how to keep LaMelo healthy, they're going to be awesome.
Huh. I wish you well on that pick. I will not be joining you, but I did not expect you to outstrip my Curious Mike bizarre pick. Man. All right.
So this will be your last pick coming up here.
This will be my last pick. And I am also kind of trying to decide on the fly here. You mentioned a lot of the guys that I kind of had on here, like in your passing. Like I had Amen Thompson on my short list.
Of course.
I had Santi Aldama was another.
How did I forget about him?
Was another guy I kind of had on my short list. Like talk soon. Trading Jaren Jackson Jr. Is he going to start over Jaren Jackson Jr. when he can't rebound at all?
You're ridiculous.
Is that okay? I'm just saying. Talk soon. Let's keep an eye out. Let's see what's going on. So there's a lot to take a look at here. I am going to trust my gut though. I'm going to be selecting Mr. Aaron Nesmith. Sorry, not Nesmith. Sorry, why did I say
Nembhard?
Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard is who I'm going to be. So because you brought up Nesmith earlier, I was like, didn't he pick a pacer?
I brought up Nesmith and I talked about Andrew Nembhard. I just mentioned him in passing, but he was just on my long list of guys.
I think Nembhard is going to kind of supplant Mathurin as the I think people expect Mathurin to like get better this year and to kind of be more of a contributor and kind of
doesn't fit with that team. I'm with you on that. I think he's talented and he might work somewhere else. Yeah. But that team, like he's kind of like Kuminga with the Warriors, where he's clearly got skill, but it's just a team that loves to like run and move the ball and gun. Like he just is. It's kind of a weird fit. Yeah,
it's kind of a weird fit, and I think Nembhard it would be a small backcourt, like if you start him and Halliburton together, and it is kind of like a weird fit. But like those are two guys who like do kind of have like differing skill sets, whereas like Halliburton is kind of this pure point guard setting people up. He can shoot. It's not like he's like a Rajon Rondo out there or anything like that. Whereas like
Halliburton is one of the best shooters in the NBA. He's like one of the 5 best shooters in the NBA.
Yeah. And and then you have like Nembhard who can just kind of cook, again, I'm a huge playoff guy. It was not lost on me how fucking good he was. I was terrified of him in the playoffs. And similar thing to he was the best player on the floor for the Pacers for like most of that series, and I think that fucking matters. This is a very Bill thing of me to say, but like,
Nembhard's his guy, so he would approve of this.
Yeah, well, but when he was like high on Nembhard last year, it was kind of weird though, because like
that was
Nembhard
like 2 years ago.
It was like 9.
He had like 2 game-winning shots in like a span of a few weeks, and he loved them.
Yeah, no, I mean he's a dog. He's a guy who's like
he's also bigger than you think. He's 6'5".
Yeah, like I think he's like a real NBA player, and I think that like I could see him kind of having a. Not the most recent Jalen Brunson jump, but I could see him having a Jalen Brunson like going to the Knicks jump. You know what I'm saying? Like where it's like all of a sudden it's like, wait, is like Andrew Nembhard like he should kind of be starting, right? Like he's their third best player, or something like that. Like I think that he's going to establish himself as the third best player on the Pacers and someone who like it's kind of weird. They should maybe start him, I think that's something that he's going to have to figure out. Carlisle's gonna have to figure out like throughout the year. So
he's definitely gonna start for them. By the way, their starters are going to be Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner.
Okay,
and then I think that the bench will be TJ, Obi Toppin, Mathurin, Jarris Walker, and we're probably forgetting someone. They're very deep. They have a lot of talent.
Was it Jalen's? No, Jaylen Smith's on.
He signed with the Bulls.
The Bulls.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But they're deep. The sneaky thing I like about Nembhard House.
Mm-hmm. Oh, James Wiseman. That's who we forgot.
Well, yeah, we'll see if he plays. I mean, I know he played in preseason, but the guy that I think, or the reason I think that if you want to be high on Nembhard is that Halliburton gets hurt like kind of a lot. And Nembhard is the rare kind of player, even though I'm a little bit lower than him and then like the nerd consensus.
Mm-hmm.
Nembhard is the rare player that can play off of Halliburton because he's a good defender.
Yeah.
He can handle the ball. He can make passes on or off the ball. Like he's pretty quick processor.
Yeah.
Good shooter, not a great shooter, just like a solid shooter. But he also like he can be a role player and then I think at moments be a star. Like, and I think that is so it's almost like Derek White-ish a little bit, like not quite the level of defender of Derek White, but like he is a malleable guy. And I think that having a malleable guard that can play the 1 or the 2, that can do a lot of the things that you want a role player to do when he's in the role player role and can scale up to like a star, a fake star, even maybe not full blown all-star kind of role is incredibly important for what the Pacers want to do. Cause they want to run and gun and they want to have, they'll have him play with TJ. Sometimes they'll have him play with Hallie sometimes. Yeah. I think that the Siakam pickup's just going to be good for, easing him into that role too.
I didn't love the fit and I got to kind of eat crow. It kind of worked. They were pretty good.
In the playoffs, I think they were. I think in the regular season, they never really figured it out. But I don't think that Hallie was fully healthy. So I'm excited to see what they look like with a healthy roster next year. Like,
I was accusing them of being fake frauds because I think Tyrese Halliburton's a fake fraud. But I kind of gotta. I might have to wear that one. I think the Pacers are just going to be like pretty good. Like, they are just pretty good. So,
So that is your last pick. I'm going to go with my last pick here, which is my category of one fringe NBA player who will become a rotation player this upcoming season. Now, I don't mean like rotation player on a bad team. I mean like he'll be like a rotation player that like okay, maybe bad is like they'll be somewhere in the middle of the road and up.
I can't believe this. You're not going to pick Arnold Batim of the.
I'm not taking. I can't even begin to say his name on the Bulls.
Arnold Batim.
I have a few guys that I think
it's on my short list, by the way, for that exact reason.
Let's go. Yes. He's definitely going to get an opportunity. The Bulls have a lot of guys that will take opportunity here.
Yep.
Yabu's too good to qualify for this, I think. Yabu showed at the Olympics and in Europe that I had him on my other list, which was one role player who will be seen as a very good role player. I think he's more in that category. Yeah. I think that he's very clearly an NBA player. Now, how high of a level of NBA player is he? We'll see this upcoming season. But this is a little bit sicker. This is like some deep cuts in here. Okay. So I have Grady Dick, Mamu.
Ooh. Yes.
I watched Mamu in preseason the other night, and I was like, I might be in on Mamu now.
Let's go.
I think if Mamu plays over Zach Collins this year, I think he could be the guy. Like
he's like a good player. I'm sorry. Like I've watched him play and I was like, that guy belongs in the NBA. Like, I'm sorry. Like he's a good player.
Being massive and being able to shoot and create a little bit is just, this is the thing that I miss with this past draft that I think I'm going to get burned on is that your margin for error when that is the case is like a fucking building. Like you have to be so bad to not make it when you're like 7 foot and you can cook a little bit and you can shoot a little bit. You can do what Mamu falls into that category. Like he's still like 24. Yeah. Like he can grow into that this upcoming season. And I think the Spurs need rotation players. Like we've said time and time again, they just do not have enough good NBA players. And he's going to get a chance this upcoming season to show that. So I think that Mamu is going to definitely get an opportunity. We'll see if he actually is.
I'm so happy.
I'm
loving this. I'm
okay. Other guys I had on this list, Julian Strawther from the Nuggets. Jake LaRavia of the Grizzlies, apparently Marcus Smart loves him. Apparently that's your guy. So he said he thinks he's going to be like a good role player, defensive wing for them this upcoming season. Jarris Walker, who we've discussed.
Yeah.
Another guy that Flop Era said this in the Discord and I have to shout about, Jordan Miller, who was just the Summer League MVP for the Clippers. We talked about the Clippers too. Like the Clippers are kind of in a weird spot now. They need to start playing. Like he's already 24, but like
somebody said this in the comments, and there was a guy on my short list. Like I was looking at the Clippers because somebody's gonna have to play, and like I couldn't get there with Amir Coffey was like probably the best like guy who's gonna get an outsized load of workload. Okay, all right, hold on. Who's gonna get like an outsized workload, but like, yeah, I mean, any of these guys on the Clippers, you know, I hope it's not one of the villains that they signed in the offseason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
and I think that Jordan Miller is going to get all the opportunity if things go off the rails a little bit, like he'll be able to show. And I don't know a ton about him. I thought he looked awesome at Summer League, but once again, he's a wing size player that can do a little bit on both. Like that, there's just so much room for error. Teams are always searching for wings, especially a guy that's like in his, mid 20s right now. He's only in his second year in the NBA. He'll get the opportunity. We'll see if he can seize it. And then the last two guys I had on here, and I'll make my pick, but I do just before I make my pick. Actually, I had 3 guys left. Another person who is near and dear to my heart, Vit Krejci, who was actually somewhat made this leap last year. He was like on the outs and kind of proved that he might be an NBA player. I love him so much. He's really just like, he's basically, Will DM me this earlier. He had his own version of the Furkan Korkmaz play, where Furkan Korkmaz looked like Steph Curry mixed with Luka against the Magic like 2 years ago. He basically had this like Magic Johnson, Nikola Jokic level full court bounce pass in the preseason last night. He's once again going back to the 21-22 season. He was always the NPC Thunder player that I would talk about. Like, who the fuck is Vit Krejci?
Yeah.
like these aren't real players. Lindy Waters, Vit Krejci, he has now moved his way into, like, I think he'll play some for the Hawks off the bench next year, and I expect the Hawks to be a little bit better. So don't sleep on Vit Krejci is all I'm saying for this upcoming season. And then my last 2 guys that I will actually make my selection here. Ricky Council, who another guy that I love very much.
I should have fucking known.
Rick, okay, I'm not taking him, but I need to cook a little bit on Ricky Council. I've said this where I feel like Nick Nurse is not very high on Ricky Council because he's very sporadic and he has Paul Reed energy. This is how I would describe it. Like he's just like really athletic, can fly all over the place, but plays reckless a lot of the times. this guy is so talented and athletic and just an elite foul drawer already. They need to figure out a way to get him on the court is all my thing. And I think that he is going to force his way onto the court next year. I don't know if he ends up staying in the rotation, but I've said it on Twitter, like he's just way too talented to not play at all next year, even on a team that doesn't really need his skill set. Like the Sixers, like I think they actually have a good amount of athletic wings and forwards now that they won't rely on Ricky Council, like, or at least need him as much as they needed to. But like, if the shot gets to an average level, which it's shown progress over the last year, and the defense is passable, he needs to play. Like, I'm not even kidding when I say this. I kind of said like an offhanded comment. Like, I think he might be the best wing size player. I know Giannis is way bigger than him at drawing fouls I've seen since young Giannis. Like,
let's go.
He had the highest foul rate in the NBA last year. Like,
that is kind of crazy.
100th percentile. Someone sent in, he literally had the highest foul rate of anyone in the NBA this past season. And then in the preseason game, once again, they're playing against the New Zealand Breakers. I'm not over-indexing it too much. He got to the line like 5 times. I was like, this guy's literally, if he touches the ball, he gets to the line. So like, he's going to have to figure some things out, how to play within the context of an NBA offense, how not to just dominate the ball all the time. But like the skills are all there for him to be like a real impact player in the NBA. But he's not my pick. I love him dearly. Rights to Ricky Council will always live in my heart. But my pick is Scotty Pippen Jr. So I actually think Scotty Pippen Jr. will be like in the Tyus Jones. He'll be like the new Tyus Jones, basically. Where like a year from now, all the nerds are gonna love Scotty Pippen Jr. I think they're already starting to like pick up on him now. The thing that he struggled with last year is he turned the ball over a lot. He had like a 19% turnover rate, but he was playing for a dog shit Grizzlies team with bad spacing, no real talent around him. Yeah. He had a 31% assist rate last year. His shooting has improved a ton. He's a good defender. He's a little undersized, obviously, but I think that he is going to be like the nerd favorite two-way bench guard. And he plays for the Grizzlies, which is already a nerd favorite team filled with all these prospects. And I actually think that he's going to be like a real, like he'll play like 20, 25 minutes a game next year for them. And he's going to be seen as one of the better role playing bench players in the NBA a year from now. So that's my pick, Scotty Pippen Jr. He had a game against the Heat last year that I watched, and he was Bam Adebayo played, Jimmy Butler played. He was the best player on the court.
Let's go.
And he's still like 22, I think 23. Like he's still got like, and once again, I like to clown the Lakers a lot. The Lakers drafted him. He was technically undrafted. They signed him to a two-way. The two teams that don't really miss a ton on those kind of guys are the Lakers and the Grizzlies. Yeah. And he's played for both of those teams. So like if they see something in you, I think there is something there. So I'm going with Scotty Pippen Jr.
Let's go. Perfect.
God, people are going to give us so much shit for not getting to 2 hours for this episode. Wolf is saying that we don't care about working anymore. People don't work like they used to.
People don't work anymore.
The season approaches and our episodes get shorter.
Yeah. Well, we're done talking about. I mean, look,
all the important stuff.
Yeah, I was saying we're all the important stuff. The slop is over. This is what happened.
The 2018 draft like rewatch is not.
Well, did we talk about Shams getting hired? We didn't, right?
No, we didn't talk about Shams getting hired. Do you want to talk about that? It was kind of obvious. Like,
we said that. Like,
we said it instantly. Like, it seemed pretty obvious that the only newsbreaker left was Shams that was big enough to fill Woj's shoes and like is enough of a sicko to do it. Like,
like he's trained in the arts. You know, like he is. You forget that. Like, also look, what Shams is like. What 28 too?
30. He's 30. Yeah,
30. Okay,
but still 30. Your life isn't over when you're 30, guys. I started this podcast when I was 30.
Yeah, it's and look at it now. Look at us now. We've come along.
Our lives are worth living. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Hey. But you know, I mean, I think that was the obvious thing. I don't know if Woj. It makes me wonder if they fired Zach to have a big offer to throw at Shams once Woj left.
So do you think that I think that leak was total bullshit from ESPN? Because there was a leak yesterday that Woj is only, or Shams is only making half of what Woj made. And I was like, I think they're trying to save face because they got so much backlash for the Zach Lowe firing that they're like, oh no, we're not actually, like, if I had to guess, I personally think
if I'm poor.
What's that?
We're just poor. We can't pay. Look, we're not paying anyone. We're like
mom and pop business, Walt Disney
family business. It's a Disney company.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to pay $9,000 to pay Tate McRae to be Agatha's sister in Rise of Dr. Doom 4, which is
priorities
plus straight direct to DVD.
But I just want to point out here that I definitely think that leak was bullshit. Yes, I'm not pocket watching here, but I think what happened was they took Woj's salary and then they put Zach Lowe's salary on top of Woj's salary. Yes. Because if you're Shams, you have all the fucking leverage in the world there. Like you're like,
Shams actually only got half the bag. He needs to fire his agent immediately.
Yeah. I was like, you at least need to make as much as Woj make. I know he's older and he was more tenured than Woj when he got that job, but like, yeah, no, I mean, Shams has been doing this since what, almost a decade at this point. And once again, he's the only one that could have taken this job and filled Woj's shoes. Like all these other guys, like they either just like want to be normal and have like a normal life, or like they work in different departments and like they're not basketball. Like Shams already has all the connections. He's already a fucking basically household name in the NBA world. Like I would say, like I got people at a party were talking about the Karl Anthony Towns trade when he broke it the night of it. Like,
yeah.
Like he has motion, like he has clout. And if that is the case, he I would hope for his sake that he's making close to $10 million a year.
Like on fucking contract details for a living. Like if that guy doesn't know how to stop himself from getting fucked in contract,
exactly. Yeah,
that's one of the most insane things ever. I don't know. It would be bad. By the way, our beautiful Phils up 1-0.
Let's go. I will be tuning in right now. Although Suarez, maybe I shouldn't.
7 strikeouts and 4 innings pitched. Let's
go.
Yep.
We got it, babe. All right. So we're done here. We will be back. I guess we'll record tomorrow. the second Patreon episode, which if you want to hear that, it will be on the Ball Patreon tomorrow, which is the opposite of this, the fall off draft. Who will be crashing and burning this upcoming? The one you really want to hear.
Yeah, this is the one we like being mean. We're very nice. Good.
We were nice on the public episode. We were talking to these guys all up. The washed up draft, as Dre just commented, is coming tomorrow.
Now it's time for us to crush some 24-year-olds.
It's over for you.
Yeah, mid-30s guys destroy 24-year-olds. Let's go.
We're going to own them with facts and logic. So tune in for that. Thank you for tuning in for this one. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Peace.